talking about the Enchanted Cottage, and what this is about are two people who come together. The story is that there's one woman who is an old maid who lives alone in the woods, and the reason she lives alone is because she has well, in the book it goes into more detail, but basically, she thought she's repugnant or repulsive to the normal human race because of a large goiter or mole or something that just pretty much focuses on her appearance, and rather than deal with it in a conventional, brave, medical way, whatever you want to put on it, she decides just to go off into the woods and live by herself. Well, the other character is a man who just returned from the war, and he has a huge scar. In fact, half his face is just completely scarred from an injury sustained in the war, and needless to say, he's completely repugnant to most of the human beings. And when they come together in this cottage in the woods, they don't see those flaws. He sees her as a beautiful young woman, which she really is, and she sees him as a handsome young man, which he really is. But when they get outside of the cottage, then the other people see them with the big scar and the large mole or tumor or goiter or whatever it is on her face, and the other characters react, as to what they see. But then when they come together in the cottage, then they see each other, what they really are inside. And of course the movie ends that they both go back and live in the cottage and live there, for their whole lives and just stay in that area. But there's one character in the movie who is not only compassionate towards both of them, but he genuinely sees beyond the scars and the tumors and the moles and stuff, and actually sees them for the beautiful people they are. And it's it's such a nice story, because he basically just accepts them and doesn't even look at their appearance. He just sees them for the people that they are. And once again, it's called The Enchanted Cottage, and it's made in the 40s. And it's, it's not really to do with what we've been talking about, but I think it's another example of a director taking a brave stance and making a movie that he knows the public isn't going to accept because he believes in what he's doing. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about Ed Wood. Y'all know Ed Wood, the really, really, really bad director who was actually given the title of the worst director of all time. And of course, everybody is familiar with Plan 9 from Outer Space. Well, the reason we're going to talk about Ed Wood is because we're going to try to look beyond what the public saw in his stuff, and try to look beyond the real bad movies that he made and what he was really trying to do, and also why I believe that he does have something to do with this topic we have been discussing. Okay? Now, if you look at his movies are not only not mainstream, but they're not comfortable subjects either. Of course, his first one, Glen or Glenda, about the cross-dresser, or the transvestite, if you will. But also, you have to remember, one of the main characters in there was a supreme being that oversaw everything. And there was also a character in there that was a demon that could disappear and materialize at will, too. And this wasn't, neither of these characters were the main focal point or the subject or the topic of this movie, but they were both in the movies. Well, then later on, after he made Glen or Glenda, he decided to make Bride of the Monster, which was about a mad scientist creating life, you know. So you get into the artificial creation story again, you know, i.e. One step above the Frankenstein legend or whatever. And then he made Plan 9 from Outer Space, which was about a spaceship shooting down rays that animated the dead and brought them back to life. So then you get into the vampires and the ghouls and grave robbers and all this kind of stuff, plus the aliens and the UFOs. See, so you're kind of getting a glimpse of what he believed and stuff, you know? And also, Plan 9 from Outer Space is pretty much Night of the Living Dead, you know? I mean, I don't know if it was ever brought out that pretty much George Romero just kind of stole that whole entire idea, because not only was Night of the Living Dead about dead bodies coming back to life, but also if you follow the trilogy, you find out that somewhere it talks about how the spaceship, you know, that the UFO was shooting down the rays to bring back the dead and animate them, which is exactly the Plan 9 from Outer Space story. And then right after the Plan 9 from Outer Space flopped, you know, they made another one in 1957 with John Carradine about the Walking Dead, and pretty much it was the same premise too, that a spaceship had shot these rays and animated dead people, you know. So even though Ed Wood had absolutely no success with his Plan 9 from Outer Space, you know, the movie The Walking Dead was actually a rip-off of it, and The Night of the Living Dead, which had not only universal success, but has made millions and millions of dollars, is from that original Ed Wood Plan 9 story. Okay, so then that one flops, okay? Then he makes some very, very obscure ones, like Jailbait and The Violent Years, which have absolutely nothing to do with any kind of or science fiction or anything like that. In other words, he tries a different media, but even, you know, he's not successful in that either. Then he makes Night of the Ghouls. Well, pretty much it tells the whole title, Night of the Ghouls, you know. I mean, it's got other names, but it's Night of the Ghouls is the most popularly accepted name, about, you know, haunted mansions and seances and outworldly characters and all this kind of stuff. So he goes back to the original genre that he first enjoyed, you know, that he first believed in, you know. And needless to say, I've seen Night of the Ghouls, and it's just as badly made as everything else he's done, and it's really terrible effects and terrible acting, and, you know, the story is interesting, but you can't get past the effects and the acting to really get into the story. Well, then he makes Orgy of the Dead, you know, and it turns out to be a bunch of strippers doing their act with a real flimsy premise of the Lord of the Dead awakening all the dead spirits to entertain him one night. You know, it doesn't come off like that. But then again, he has the vampire in there, and he has the werewolf in there, and he has the mummy in there, you know, which really don't serve any useful purpose in the movie. But there he goes back to his roots again about vampires and werewolves and the Frankenstein monster and all that kind of stuff, you know, which is the things he grew up with that he really believed in. So he had good intentions, you know, to make these movies, but he also had a belief in these things we've been talking about. He just never had the means or the talent or the potential